So, welcome to day 20 of our practice of the blooming of a lotus. And our practice has been going on every morning. And today we'll be taking some questions and answering appropriately. So we will again start with our 3 sounds of the bell and the morning chant, and then a short meditation, guided meditation, and then lead into questions and answers. Thank you.
With posture upright and solid, we are seated at the foot of the Bodhi tree. Body, speech, and mind are one. In stillness there is no more thought of right and wrong. Our mind and body dwell in perfect mindfulness. We rediscover our original nature. Leaving the shore of illusion behind. Noble Sangha, diligently bring your minds into meditation. Namo Shakyamunaya Buddhaya. Namo Namo Shakyamunaya Buddhaya. Namo Shakyamunaya Buddhaya. Namo Shakyamunaya Buddhaya. Namo Shakyamunaya Buddhaya.
It's finding your seat in a grounded and stable way. And being aware of our posture, upright, aware of our spine as it goes up the back, into the neck, into the head. And being aware of our breath. Each breath as we breathe in and as we breathe out. Feeling the rise and fall of the abdomen with each in-breath and each out-breath. Aware of the whole length of the breath, the beginning of the in-breath, the end of the in-breath, the beginning of the out-breath, the end of the out-breath. Just enjoying the breath, this breath of life. And while maintaining the awareness of breath, relaxing our whole body. Breathing in, I relax my body. Breathing out, I feel at ease. Relaxing the muscles in the face, relaxing your jaw, offering yourself that half smile of awareness, relaxing your shoulders, softening them, relaxing the arms, the torso, the legs, the feet. Just feeling a sense of ease and comfort in this present moment as we sit together. So today, dear friends, we have an opportunity for having some questions and responses. And we have some friends who've written a few questions in, and then some who may be on Zoom and some who may be on YouTube. So we thought we'll give priority to the people who've written in and to the people on YouTube. And then we can, if there are questions in Zoom, let's see how they go. So we have some friends who are going to ask the question. So maybe, I'm not sure who's doing it, whether it's Gitu or Manish, but please do ask the question and then I will see how we can respond appropriately.
Okay. So the question is, my mind wavers. How do I keep it still during meditation? And there's a similar question, which I will read out again, which relates to the same thing. It says, I've attended all the sessions so far and have been trying to do the suggested practices, but find it difficult to keep the mind calm. The rush of getting things done, starting work on time, making sure that the elderly are looked after and things are done on time for them leaves little space in my head.
Can you repeat what was the first bit? The other question?
Wavers, how do I keep it still during meditation?
No, thank you. So the practice of meditation has the element of mindfulness, the energy of mindfulness, and the element of concentration. So mindfulness is trying to be aware of what is going on. And so we take a particular object, and in this case, we might take the breath, or we've been doing other parts of the body, and we keep bringing our mindful awareness back to that same object. And that is what helps our mind not waver. So every time we catch our mind wavering off, then we try and bring it back to that object. And that's why we take this object like the breath. So when we say we're mindful of something, we are mindful of the breath. Or if you're saying we're drinking tea, we're mindful of drinking tea. Or if you're walking, we're mindful of walking. So we're creating that present moment awareness of exactly what we're doing on that object. And that mindful awareness is that energy of meditation. So you keep bringing your mind back, and it's a practice. That's why we call it a practice. You always come back to the same object. And after a little while, it becomes easier. You can always come back. The distraction happens. That's the nature of our mind. Our nature of our mind is to latch onto some other thought or some other external stimuli that comes in. And then we, in the Buddha Dharma, we often talk of the monkey mind, which the monkey is like holding onto one branch and then jumping onto another branch. So our mind is a bit like that. And what we're trying to do with meditation is always trying to bring our mind back to that one branch. And then after a little while, that's what becomes our object of meditation, but also the concentration object of our meditation. So in the other question, which is that I get distracted and I'm doing a lot of different things, what we try and do is this sort of what I call serial monotasking. We are really attentive and mindful to what we are doing at that point, 100%, and then move to the next thing. So when we meditate on our breath, then we are 100% aware of our breath. When we meditate on washing the dish or having a bath or brushing our teeth, we are 100% aware of that. And that present moment awareness is the energy of mindfulness that we are creating in everything we're doing. So then we don't get so led away by other thoughts and other distractions. Thank you.
The second question is, how do I connect to my inner island within myself?
Sorry, I couldn't hear it.
How do I connect to my inner island within myself?
So there's a beautiful song which has been sung or written in Plum Village. And it goes something like this. Breathing in, I go back to the island within myself. There are beautiful trees within the island. There are clear streams of water. There are birds, sunshine, and fresh air. Breathing out, I feel safe. I enjoy going back to my island. So maybe the question is coming from that song. Maybe the friend who's sent that question is referring to this song. And in all of us, there are beautiful aspects of ourselves. And in this poetic rendering, we're talking about, streams and trees, but it's touching those beautiful aspects of ourselves and coming back to that when we need that refuge. So we become our own refuge, and we take refuge in all those beautiful parts of ourselves. And as we know, we can always be changing them. We can be transforming them. They're not something which is fixed. There's not something which is like a soul, which is an intrinsically existent entity. But this is something which we cultivate, and we cultivate this island within ourselves. And so when the Buddha's famous words, Attadipa Bhava, when he says, take refuge in the island of self. Some people interpret it as taking refuge in the light of oneself. It could be light or island. So what we have done is we've cultivated the beauty of our own island. We've touched those wonderful, nourishing aspects of our own mind and our own heart. And those have come not just from us, but from our ancestors, from our culture, and also what we try to cultivate. So it's like we've often talked about creating our own garden. And in the garden, there are lots of flowers, there are also weeds. And so we do our own little weeding and try and be careful that we try and be more attentive to the flowers and not put so much water and so much care on the weeds. We try and we take care of them, but we try not to cultivate them. So in the same way, we try and build this beautiful island of oneself, and then have the confidence to go back to that island, because we have a tendency often to distract ourselves away and take refuge in something which is a distractive element. It could be anything. It could be a TV program. It could be, but the final refuge is within oneself. So creating that island within oneself is how to cultivate that beautiful mind of which we all have. We all have that potential within us, and we have it within us. So it's just having that confidence to go back to that island. I'm going to invite the sound of the bell. So we pause before the next question.
Dear friends on YouTube and Zoom, please feel free to write on the chat. You can write your question on the chat because this is the last one I have, which has been sent to us. Ying also said that she has sent one, but we haven't got it here. It may have come at night. So please write your question on the chat and we can read that out for Zoom users and for YouTube users. The next question is, I have understood that coming back to the breath and becoming aware of thoughts, feelings, emotions can help to change our response to a situation, and of course, having empathy of others' suffering. My question is, how does one sit with and hold one's own suffering without letting the feelings overwhelm you? How does one sit with and hold one's own suffering without letting the feelings overwhelm you?
Yes, as this practice is about how to take care of one's own suffering. And as we know, the Buddha also talked about the art of suffering. In fact, the fundamental teaching of the Buddha was about how to acknowledge our suffering, and then how to look at the roots of the suffering, and then the path to overcome that suffering. So the first thing is to recognize the suffering. I think, again, many of us try and not even recognize it. Life goes on, and we just get on another sort of bandwagon or rat race, trying to even avoid what is happening right in front of us or within us. So the first is just to stop and to recognize that suffering. And then as we can become more familiar with it, we touch it, we embrace it, we name it. And in that embracing of it, Thai has given a very nice analogy of the mother holding a child, and the child is crying. Mother doesn't immediately know why the child is crying. And as the mother holds the child, she gets to know why this child is crying, whether it's to do with wanting some food or wanting to go to the toilet or needing to burp, whatever the physicality of that baby's needs are. But with us, what we are looking at is when we are embracing our own suffering, we also are looking at what is the suffering coming from. Nothing happens independently. Everything is fed. And so once we look at that and we just sit with it, we find that some insight might arise. So these three elements of meditation, the first being mindful awareness, the second being concentration, and the third being insight, happen in this process of just embracing and sitting with our suffering. And in that process, we stay very, very mindful of what is happening within us, within our body, within our breath, but also always trying to come back to our breath as a focus, because a breath is just a gift. It's what, when we become aware that we are breathing, we are aware that we are alive. This is a very nourishing feeling. It's the most wonderful thing that we are alive. And so we always come back to the breath as a concentration. If our mind is getting very, very distracted and disturbed, come back to the present, touch what is healing, what is beautiful right in the present. When we feel strong enough, then start delving into our own suffering. Always nourish yourself first with sitting, whether it's with looking at a flower, enjoying the garden, listening to birds. So that's why this series of meditations we've been doing so far, the last 4 weeks, have been very much about nourishing, developing the joy of our practice, connecting. And then once we have that feeling of stability, strength, well-being within ourselves, then we start looking more deeply at something which is bothering us. And this deep suffering that has come is not coming because we are the only ones who are hardwired towards suffering. We also are hardwired towards happiness. And that is what the Buddha tried to help us with. When he said, when you embrace your suffering, you will get to know what is it that is feeding that suffering. Are there certain habit energies? Are there certain familial patterns? Are there certain toxic sensory inputs that we are taking in? What is that food that is offering that suffering its sustenance? And as we've often said, suffering is optional. We can come out of suffering, but it doesn't mean that it happens in a day. It's a slow process because there's been a build-up in our mind and body. And so again, it's important if we can to have a place of refuge in yourself, like the island in oneself, and try and find those beautiful elements of one too. And so you don't always feel that everything that around you is that suffering, that you have in you the resources which allow you to touch happiness, to be free and smile.
Question on YouTube.
Yes.
Can the mind concentrate on two things at the same time? I'm mindful of chopping vegetables. I don't notice my breath. I want to clarify it because I frequently hear mindfulness of breathing.
Yes. No, there's always, so I'm going to invite the bell before we get that question. So when we become mindful, we can really become mindful of one thing at a time, which is dominant. So you can be mindful of different things, but they are more on the periphery. But one thing takes the full concentration. So say when we're meditating and we're bringing our mindfulness on our breath, then we are 100% with the breath. That is what our focus is. The breathing in, the breathing out, the length of the breath, the quality of the breathing, and that becomes our object. When we are cutting vegetables, then we're 100% with that action. But the breath is a refuge. So when our mind gets distracted and starts going into some sort of a storyline, we can use our breath to anchor ourselves back, and then we go back into cutting the vegetables. So when we're cutting the vegetables, we're really only cutting the vegetables, and the breath acts like a refuge to come back into the present. So we can only really do one thing fully at one point. But of course, we are breathing, we are standing, we are walking, we're doing different things at the same time. But our attentiveness, our mindful awareness comes to one thing primarily. And the second three things are but we can change from moment to moment. It's not that we are always, we have to stay only with one object right through. But the power of concentration develops on single-pointed concentration. Now I'm realizing it's 8 o'clock, and maybe what we can do is pause here. And if there are more questions, then we can take them maybe on Monday or the next time, if that's okay. I don't want to stretch the time today. And if somebody can just make a note of the question, I can't see them. So somebody can make a note of this question. I'll respond to them on Monday or the next time. And then we can take it from there, if that's okay with everyone. Thank you for your questions. And I hope the response will help you in some way. I'll invite 2 sounds the bell, and then offer the merit of our sharing, and then 3 sounds to close. Practicing the way of awareness gives rise to benefits without limits. We vow to share the fruits with all beings. We vow to offer tribute to parents, teachers, friends, and numerous beings who give guidance and support along the path. So, dear friends, have a good weekend, and enjoy the practice. And if you feel there's some other questions that you have, please feel free to email them or put them in the WhatsApp group. And happy Mahashivratri to those who are inclined that way. Thank you.